Namaste and a very warm welcome to the Nationalist Madrasi. This is a special podcast series where we are going to discuss about the Indian knowledge system and Indian history in a very well detailed manner. And in this podcast show is presented by Siddhanta Knowledge Foundation and SMART. Nationalist Madrasi is very proud to host this kind of a special series which is presented by Siddhanta Knowledge Foundation and SMART. We are going to bring out various speakers throughout Bharat for this kind of a series. So in today's episode, we have a very special guest who is known for knowing the Indian history, loop and corner, and very in-depth manner. So today I welcome author and very well-known historian, Mr. Surya Sarathy Roy, to the Nationalist Madrasi. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for gracing this occasion. And it's a pleasure always talking to you offline. Now it is kind of a formal online podcast which we are doing it. Thank you so much for your time and valuable things which is over there. So I'm very glad to have you in our show, sir. So thank you for your time, basically, sir. I wanted to discuss many things with you. So I'll start with the role of indigenous wisdom in the freedom struggle. So freedom struggle is a very big topic. So we will confine to some areas and some personalities as well, and then we will go on to how all those wisdoms paved way, especially for our freedom as well. Sir, to start with, let's start from where it all started, especially Bengal. There are n number of personalities over there. So what is your thought on the indigenous wisdom over there for the freedom struggle from Bengal, sir?
Okay, so let me put it like this. Bengal and Punjab, from where the freedom struggles, armed struggle started, the Agni Yug, that we call the Agni Yug. It was started from Bengal, spread to Punjab, and these two were the forerunners, and then obviously then Maharashtra came in terms forms of Veer Savarkar and other people who were complementing and supplementing, and obviously Dr. Sampath has also covered Veer Savarkar in very detail, so I will not touch upon that. But let's understand the fact that all these started from Swami Vivekananda. He was the person who infused that spirit, that understanding and the fire, not only in the youth, but also his Vani, his preachings, showed the light for the freedom people involved in the freedom struggle in a very big way. Now, how is that possible? Before going to Chicago, to the conference that we all know of, Chicago, he was touring Bharat all across, down south, even in Kanyakumari. Everybody knows that. But why was he doing that? Because before going there, he wanted to understand where Bharat stands now. He wanted to understand the inherent capabilities, the strengths, and the weaker areas. And most importantly, understand the people. Now, it is wonderful as a part of my research that I see, the ideas or the concepts or the preachings with what Swami Vivekananda or Swamiji, that we call him fondly, preached on those times it reflected as late as 1960s when Lal Bahadur Shastri ji was our PM. And if you look at his clarion call of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, to re-energize the economy and re-energize the nation, you will find those same words or the same motto in the words of Swamiji. And you will find the same theology in the workings of Rishi Aurobindo and most importantly Netaji Subhash Bose.
Understood.
Right? Now, you asked me where it started, how it started. So, it all started from 1897. He arrived through the Pambam port in Chennai. Okay. And in 1897, 16th February, if I correctly remember the date, he delivered a lecture in South, I think in Chennai, if I correctly remember, and my apologies, I might, here and there, because so much of data points. So he delivered a lecture where he said very clearly, and you will be astonished that how that prophecy comes true and how his vision comes true is something which people should know about. He delivers that lecture on 1897. He straightway mentions, and it is even documented today, that for the next 50 years, India has no religion. There is no religion for India except that the freedom of India is the only religion that we should have.
Understood.
The freedom of India, I repeat those words, the freedom of India is the only religion that we should have.
Okay.
And towards that end, he also clearly clarifies that people should forget all religions and work together. People should forget the differences and work together as a unit and look at the religion. And if you really look at it from 1897 to 1947, it's exactly 50 years. Exactly 50 years. 16th February 1897 to 1947 is exactly 50 years. And that is exactly working out like this. He further adds, he passed away in 1902, right?
Okay.
In 1901, he was in Dhaka, Bangladesh.
That time it was India.
It was India, undivided Bengal, or divided Bengal, whatever you want to say. So in 1901, he meets a group of revolutionaries in Dhaka, 1901. And he mentions, and one of the revolutionaries who was there in the meeting, Hemchandra Bose, he became a prominent figure later on, and he mentions in his memoirs that Swamiji speaks the same word, that for you guys there is no religion for the next 50 years. Rather go out, and he's asking, in that ill health, he's asking that go out and preach to all the youth. There is no religion apart from freedom. And he also states that a country who is paradhin, who is under slavery, cannot have a religion. Exactly. A mother who is bounded by chains, he's using those specific terms. A mother who is bounded by chains cannot have a religion apart from freedom. That is the kind of spirit, the fire that he breathed into the youth. And if you look at the later years, today there is a lot of focus on Rishi Aurobindo's work, but how was Rishi Aurobindo, shaped up? Rishi Aurobindo was a revolutionary. Of course, his intellect was superlative, I would say. But how did he get those understandings? जो तत्व बोलते हैं हम जिसको, how did he get to understand that Vedantic and Advaita understandings? It is because of Swami Vivekananda. Okay. And it is, if you go to Auroville, they will tell you all these visions that he had. So when it goes like this, that when Rishi Aurobindo was in the Alipur Central Jail, for the Alipur bomb case, when his trial was going on, he had two darshans. One was of Sri Krishna, who gave him a darshan within his cellar and clearly told him that this is not your path is that, the spiritual path, where you will have to give direction to the people now. Enough is enough. Whatever you bomb case, what you have done is enough. Now you should have to give the direction from that direction, in that path. Okay. Then after that, and he has multiple encounters with Krishna. And then comes his vision for 12 continuous days with Swami Vivekananda. Okay. Vivekananda had left his body by that time. This is something around 1908, 1909, if I am correctly remembering. 5-6 years after Swamiji's departure from the mortal world. And he gets 12 consecutive days of darshan where Swamiji comes and teaches him and preaches him. Understood. And then he's a different man altogether. He goes to Pondicherry and everything starts moving. But in mid of this stands the Deshanayak, Netaji Subhash Bose.
Okay.
So one is Yoganayak, Swami Vivekananda, and then there is Deshanayak, Netaji Subhash Bose. And Subhashji had a universal appeal. Subhash Babu had a universal appeal. So I am not sure, how many people today who are residing in the various states of southern India. But there was the Indian National Army, the Rani Jhansi Regiment, primarily was composed of girls, young girls.
Exactly. I think Captain Lakshmi, if I'm not wrong.
Primarily from South India.
South India.
And within the men contingent, fighting battalions, there were numerous, there's a substantial quantity of people from Tamil Nadu, from Kerala, from Andhra, and from Karnataka. And who are these people? These people were the tea plantation workers from the Southeastern Asian islands or the Malay Peninsula. Let me put it in those terminologies, the Malay Peninsula. Okay. So now let's come to Netaji Subhash Bose. Now, if we look at Netaji Subhash Bose, and why I'm picking up Netaji Subhash Bose in order to give this understanding is you asked indigenous wisdom. And Bharat being a Vishwaguru right from the earliest of times, this wisdom culminated into Subhash Bose in such a manner that it completely changed the freedom struggle in all its aspects. Because it was for him, for the iron trial, that the Indian Navy, Indian soldiers rose in revolt. There was a lot of dissatisfaction in the armed forces, and the British clearly understood that they won't be able to hold out for long now. Now, if I look at Subhash Bose's life, in 1912, he comes across a book on the complete works of Vivekananda, on the letters, on the speeches and all that, from his cousin Suhit Mitra in Cuttack. And that changes his life. His readings of Vivekananda put a fire inside and created a huge internal conflict in him, which pushed him towards Vairagya. He was clearly of the understanding that he wants to take the life of ascetic, sannyasa, and lead the life of a monk. And that's how, when he was not getting satisfied, in search of this wisdom that he was looking for, this indigenous wisdom that he was talking for, he was visiting various akharas, various sadhus, various sampradayas, various mutts, not only in Odisha but in Bengal, also rendering seva to the cholera patients when epidemics were quite at large in both the states, just like what Swami Vivekananda used to do. And he imbibed that concept of Nara-Narayan Seva.
Okay.
Nara-Narayan Seva or Daridra-Narayan Seva. Now, the other part which comes out very beautifully from his character, once you do a very critical analysis, is, at the age of 16, he goes out from his home without informing anybody.
Okay.
Yeah, he escapes.
Okay.
So escaping is something he was
so from the early days itself.
Very early days, okay. Correct. So he takes one of his friends from his school and Ravenshaw College School, Cuttack, and he escapes, and they follow the same trail, almost the same trail which Swami Vivekananda had followed when he had started out from Calcutta in search of the enlightenment in the tour of Bharata. And he goes to Gaya, goes to Devghar, goes to Prayagraj, he goes to Vrindavan, he goes to Banaras, Kashi. Then he goes further up towards Delhi also he comes. He comes up to Delhi, and then again he comes back. Now, what people don't know, rightfully, is why he shunned a life of aspiration of becoming a monk, and then came back focused on the studies, freedom struggle, and how he got involved. The turning point was his meeting with Swami Brahmanand, who is also popularly known as Rakhal Maharaj, in Kashi. Okay. In the Kashi Ramakrishna Mission. So, in Ramakrishna Mission Kashi, when he first entered, Rakhal Maharaj, obviously when he gave his father's name and identity, who was a very renowned lawyer of those times in Cuttack, he knew that it is his son because they were connected by families also. Rakhal Maharaj and his father were known to each other and they were exchanging letters. Now, what is very important here, Rakhal Maharaj could clearly see the fire this boy has. And he being a visionary, he was the Manas Putra.
Okay.
He was the Manas Putra of Paramahansa Ramakrishna. And he was also the acting president at that time of the Sri Ramakrishna mission, appointed by Swami Vivekananda. This is something very important to understand. And he was a very uplifted soul. So he could understand by looking at him and his words and his thoughts that this guy is made up for something very, very big. So he called him, made him sit behind him and put his hands over his heads and like a young child, son, you are caused for a bigger purpose and your work is to do the seva of Ma Bharati, and you have to uplift the nation and you have to uplift its people. And he explained to him in many other words. And a great reflection of this comes from the autobiography of Subhash Bose himself, Din Din Pilgrim. If you read that, you'll understand, and he gives a very subtle hint of things which Rakhal Maharaj had actually discussed with him and which gave him the vision, the power, the strength, and the clarity of thoughts.
Okay.
That's where things turned actually, That meeting turned things for him. Although he still had a lot of inner conflict to go through, inner control to go through, he started practicing Hatha Yoga. He started practicing Hatha Yoga to get control over the 5 senses. That is what Hatha Yoga gives you. And all this, obviously, he imbibes, again, coming to indigenous wisdom, ancient wisdom. So he obviously, Swami Vivekananda gives him direction on that, his letters, his Vani. And a beautiful reflection of it can also be seen in the letters that he exchanges with his mother, Prabhavati Devi. And he writes over there that how his thought process are changing, what kind of internal conflicts he's going through, how he's seeing that his thoughts are so different from the others, and how the difficulty that he's facing, that he's not able to socialize, that he's not able to talk to others, he's not finding the depth of thoughts in people. And that is one of the reasons that wherever he goes, he tries to find people of his thought process.
Okay.
His thought process are on a very high platform, very high plane, something which people might be thinking at the age of 40, that boy at the age of 16, 17 is thinking on those levels, or even much more than that. Much more than that. And when his father sends him for getting trained and then appearing for the ICS exam in England, he's still contemplating. And when he has passed it out, he got the first rank, in 4th overall, but Indian first 3 obviously will go to the Britishers. He's still not sure and he's still contemplating. And after, I think, we read that, okay, he shunned the ICS and came back and joined the Indian freedom struggle under C.R. Das as his guru. But what people do not know, just to take that decision, he had contemplated anywhere between 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
And there was a series of letters on philosophical thoughts, on ancient wisdom, on pragmatic approach, national requirement, current political situation, and his future career.
Okay.
And his future career between him and his brother Sarat Bose, and also to some extent on his mother. Because he knew that if he had gone to his father, obviously he will be outrightly rejected, which happened also. So, and even when he came back to Calcutta finally, shunning the ICS, he also had his share of initial difficulties in getting into the stream. But once he was there, he was there. Now, the indigenous wisdom of how his spirituality shaped him from Swami Vivekananda reflects in 2 things.
Okay.
One was Swami Vivekananda's teachings of practicing Shaktivad.
Okay.
Shakti, strength,
Power.
power. And without power, Swamiji clearly told you cannot have anything. You cannot uplift your people. You cannot take the country out of the bondage of the Britishers. You need strength. That's why he started Durga Puja also in Belur Math in 1901. Okay, that you worship Shakti in order to invoke Shakti in yourself. And it's the same thought, same reflection is coming out in Subhash Babu.
Understood.
And his letters, his speeches to the youth, to the various assemblies, to the various meetings that he's addressing, everywhere this gets reflected. Now, a beautiful, or I would say another aspect of it, another segment of it we come to see when he is in Sionan. Okay, when the Japanese capture Sionan or Singapore. That is the Japanese name that I use. Sionan is the Japanese name of Singapore. So Sionan, when he comes to Sionan in 1943, the first thing he does is to call for the secretary of Ramakrishna Mission in Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah. And the first time they met was on the Dashera night of 1943. And things rapidly change over there. And Ramakrishna Mission, it is very impossible to believe in today that Ramakrishna Mission had a military school in Singapore at that time. They were running a military school where the students were trained on military school,
Understood.
And what the Azad Hind League did was to take over that school and rename it as Indian National School.
Indian National School. Okay.
Correct? And that is how this thing. And in fact, interestingly, there were around 350 students over there. 350 to 400 students were there, boys and girls milake. And they wanted to have a building for their boarders dormitory style, and they needed money, of course. So Subhash Babu, gave $50,000 from the Azad Hind treasury, and $50,000 he collected by himself. And his collection of funds was amazing. I mean, we can't think of it today that he used to go to all these meetings, right, where he used to lecture the countrymen, diaspora for that matter, to be more precise. And he used to get garlanded.
Okay.
Even if you see the documentaries, he's getting garlanded heavily, very heavily garlanded, thick, 2 kgs, 3 kgs garland, or even lesser than that or more than that. He used to auction those garlands.
Okay.
That's very interesting, He used to auction those garlands. And obviously, the kind of enigma he had at that point of time, he was God incarnate. Because Rabindranath Tagore, after his escape and meeting Hitler in Germany, and then organizing the INA, after all these things, Rabindranath Tagore, right away, I think in the 1920s, he gives him that he's Krishna incarnate. Okay, he's Krishna incarnate. So he had a very different aura around him, which I will touch upon.
Definitely. Sir, I want to interrupt over here, sir. So,
Yes,
as you mentioned about both Aurobindo and Subhash Chandra Bose, but so both got their wisdom or both got their ways to depart like from Swami Vivekananda.
Yes.
One was into spiritual path and the one was into like what maybe we can.
I'll interrupt you here.
Okay.
Interrupt it here because Subhash Babu, whatever he did, even in the freedom struggle, whatever military actions, political actions, everything was guided spiritually.
Okay. But
Each of his
that was
action.
into like a step ahead, we can say.
No.
Okay.
The reason is why I'm going to tell you that also. Let's say he strongly believed, Swami Vivekananda gave you a message that mothers are the first guru. We need to empower our women, we need to educate our women if India has to progress. Because when he went outside to America or to Europe or to other countries that he had traveled after Chicago's speech, he clearly saw that those countries are advanced because the women are empowered over there, the women are educated over there, which was not happening at that point of time in India.
Understood.
The British has finished it. The Muslim rules, the Islamic rules have finished it. And he came back and he started working on those lines, and that is where Sister Nivedita played a very big role. Right? So, the theology comes from Swami Vivekananda of woman empowerment, and it flows down to Subhash Bose, and because of that, he develops the Rani Jhansi regiment. He wanted to give combat roles to women. Indian Army even today doesn't have. I mean, it has not opened up the combat roles to this thing. Although our women are, flying the Sukhois and the Rafales and the MiGs, but the combat roles in the ground forces have still not opened up. But he opened up that point of time.
Exactly.
And Rani Lakshmibai and the 1500 odd women who fought for INA, they fought shoulder by shoulder, hand to hand with the men in the forests of Burma, Arakan, and they took the bullets on their chest, just like them. This is women empowerment. Now let's come to child education. That also flows from Swami Vivekananda, and he implements it.
Okay.
When he develops the Indian National School, taking it over from Ramakrishna Mission, he develops with a clear mission. He has a clear direction on it, which he gives to Swami Bhaswaranand, the secretary, and to Brahmachari Kailasam. Brahmachari Kailasam, the assistant or the deputy to the secretary, had a clear direction from Bose that this is what the curriculum should be, this is how it had to be done. And these boys and girls used to follow a military regime.
Okay.
Yeah. Now comes to the economic side. The economic side, he clearly understood, the political and the economic side, he clearly understood, and on a very high level, I'm telling you, he gave a direction that the first 20 years, once India gets independence, it has to be a dictatorship. The first 20 years.
Okay.
So, what I'm trying to say, when you say indigenous, it's just not spiritual and God and all that. No, because Swami Vivekananda's philosophy was Advaita Vedanta. And what Advaita Vedanta, what he actually did, he married the teachings of Sankara. This is one thing which people miss out.
Okay.
Swamiji brought in the teachings of Sankara and married it to the science, modern day science. And this is what exactly, after Subhash contemplating, researching, visiting so many much sampradayas, monks, seers, going through them, implements. Because he thoroughly researches and understands the philosophy and what is best for India.
Understood.
And this is why he brings in. So that is the difference. Even today, if you read the teachings of Aurobindo, or Rishi Aurobindo, let me tell you like that, it also culminates to those thought process, those theologies. It is nothing different from each other.
Understood.
So that's where we are.
Understood. Sir, I just want to ask you whether Bose was ahead of all the time, since you are mentioning, so it was pretty like 80 years before he was starting a women's section in the Indian National Army, or like let's say Indian Army. So even now we are not able to properly give a section over there. And you mentioned about the child development and everything as well. So was Bose ahead of all the time, sir, even before years? And let me come to the INC part as well. Like controversially, what I read is like contrastingly, the INA or Gandhi didn't have obliged to the idea of Bose. Even I can say like that. So was he ahead of all the time, or was he ahead of INC's idea of getting the freedom and getting those narratives as well?
He was way ahead of his times.
Okay.
Let me tell you that. He was way ahead of his times. He was way ahead of his contemporaries. And that is why everything related to him had been suppressed. Everything related to him had been suppressed. I personally, have a doubt whether he truly married or not.
Okay.
We learn of Emily Schenkel. The character of Emily Schenkel is not untrue. Yeah, she worked as a secretary in Germany. But whether they were truly married or not, whether he had truly a daughter or not, is something I have always doubted personally. This is again personal opinion. And and why so? Because he was a sadhu. He was a sadhu disguised as a military leader, a political leader. But he was a sadhu, a Dasnami Sampradaya sadhu, whose spiritual plane was very high.
Understood.
Extremely high. You cannot even imagine. There are stories where I have heard that I'm still trying to get a documented version of it, where once a Japanese officer unfortunately had, in a hurry to call him for departure, had entered his some his worshipping room, or the temple, I would say, in a Ramakrishna mission. In Ramakrishna mission, I'll come to that part also, where he saw that Bose was levitating. Something which we clearly hear and learn about our yogis. In the recent times, we have heard of Lahiri Mahasaya, who used to levitate at a good level. His house is still, that room is still there in Kashi. One of the founder fathers of Kriya Yoga. He was levitating, and by looking at that vision of Bose, that officer fell unconscious. Right? So, and how it also used to happen, I'll give you one incident. This is very important for the viewers to know, and I'm sure they will enjoy it. They will learn from it. 1944, the British have occupied, they are coming and they are going to reoccupy Rangoon. And Bose had set up his military headquarters in Rangoon from Sionan when he launched the offensive through Arakan Valley. So now the Japanese officers, the INA officers, including Shahnawaz Khan and Dhillon, they are all telling him that you need to pack off and go immediately. Rest we will handle. But you need to be alive, you need to be free, otherwise India will lose its hope. You're the only hope now. So he understands, and he understands that okay, he has to leave and agrees to it. But before that, what happens is that morning he goes to Ramakrishna mission in Rangoon, where he used to go during his stay in Rangoon. Dresses himself up in a pure silk dhoti and a patta vastra, and he looks like a divine figure, in that. And since I belong from the Ramakrishna order, the silk dhotis and all these are normally worn. Even today, if you go to Delhi's Ramakrishna mission also, they are worn by the pujaris or the brahmacharis. Mind my words. They are only worn by the brahmacharis who took the puja inside the temple, in the sanctum sanctorium.
Okay.
So, and he used to wear that dress before his going inside the temple, before doing his sadhana.
Okay. So that's how you come to a conclusion whether he is...
He was a brahmachari.
Okay.
He was a lifelong brahmachari.
Understood.
So these things, obviously, many historians may or may not agree, but since I come from the order, I have done my research, I have done my working, and of course my family was related to Bose. So, that we can take it up in a separate episode. There are certain history and facts. But the fact is, he goes inside with that outfit, and he sits there for 2 to 3 hours, and he comes out. When he comes out, he's completely red. And there is a separate glow which is coming out, it's like a divine figure which is standing in front of everyone. Red, completely red faced. And there is a glow emanating. And even normal times also, the brahmacharis or the swamis or the maharajas are writing, or even his fellow officers are writing, he used to emanate a glow, a different glow. As if somebody has, like a halo or something, his face used to have that kind of jyoti. It is because of his deep sadhana. Even in Sionan, in the night, almost every day, or at least 4 to 5 days a week, at the end of the day, he used to get a car for himself, and either the brahmachari used to come, brahmachari Kailasam, or Swami, Bhaswarananda. They will take him to the mutt. He will do his sadhana for 2 hours, 2 good hours. Sometimes he used to have dinner, sometimes not. And he used to do his sadhana inside the sanctum sanctorium.
Okay.
Please remember.
Okay. So that's...
Not everyone can go inside sanctum sanctorium.
Understood.
And you, me, we all know who can go inside sanctum.
Exactly.
Right?
Okay. So that's how you...
This is one thing. This is just one part of it. This is one of the proofs that I am, sharing. There are other reasons also to believe, which we can talk in the later episodes. But this is the kind of spiritual level of that man. So today when my friend Anuj or Chandrachud, they give incriminating documents, incriminating evidence of that Gumnami Baba is Subhash Bose, I completely agree with them. I completely agree with them. Not because of the the handwritings or the photograph which have been recovered or other documents, but because of the spiritual factor.
Understood.
Because only and only of the spiritual factor, because the kind of powers which Gumnami Baba had and the kind of incidences what he used to recount and tell, only Subhash Bose can tell all those details with that kind of elevation, spiritual elevation. He was a Dasnami Sampradaya sadhu.
Okay. So
yeah. So I mean, we can talk on this in our later episodes, but we need to relook at, because today all these years we are only talking about his death, the mystery shrouding around his death. We are not looking at his policies.
Exactly.
We are not looking at his strategies. We are not looking at his visions, and of course we are not looking at his background, mostly the childhood and the teenage part which shaped him to the man which he became.
Exactly. So even I'm very glad to know all these things, because we have read in the history he had developed a women's sector in the Indian Army, but we didn't look over as it is a women empowerment thing. And now after talking with you, people would be knowing much about Bose in a very detailed manner. So I would like to come to the Indian National Army part actually. So how did he made these things? Because we know how strong was the Indian National Army, and how what to say, how the wings were developed, and how what to say, how powerful it was. How did he had the vision of doing that, sir? Because see, obviously if he would have been post 1947 in India, then things would have been very different. He would have been made something bigger, or let's say even at least to a defense minister, to that range he would have been at least there. So what was his vision towards INA, and what was his vision towards Indian Army, or what was his Indian vision towards Indian Army, Navy and Air Force, sir?
Point number one, he had a formal military training at none other than Fort William.
Okay.
His passing out parade happened in the Fort William. He had official formal military training under the British when he was studying in the Scottish Church College. This is around 1920-21. This is point number one. Point number two, I shared at least some bit of his background from childhood and teenage days, what shaped his thoughts for a organized approach. Now listen, what's happening? What was happening? There were multiple groups working, but all working, armed struggle I'm saying, all working in a very, I would say, unorganized manner. There was Bagajatin. We don't talk about Bagajatin in the national parlance. And people do not know Bagajatin, Jatindranath, who died in the fierce gun battle at the shores of Buribalam in Orissa under Charles Teggart, the fearsome police commissioner. He also was bringing in, during the First World War, one full ship of arms and ammunition from Germany.
Understood.
And it is not that Germany was, tapped only by Bose. Germany was contacted in the First World War. And Germany sent arms and ammunition and other support to Jatindranath Banerjee, Jatindranath or Bagajatin. But unfortunately, that ship was intercepted due to some leakage of information at Batavia.
Okay.
That ship was intercepted. And the ship had to come to, if I correctly remember, in Balasore, Buribalam, in the shores of Buribalam. So they had to take the delivery of the arms. If that had gone through, Bengal and India would have become, independent at least 30 years prior.
Understood.
This is not known to people. And why the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda is also so important is because The RSS that we see today is also built on his theology, because Dr. Hegrawal was a part of Anushilan Samiti when he was 14 years old.
Exactly.
And when the police raided, Aurobindo gave him some incriminating documents and pushed him away. That you go and carry on the work. He escaped, that boy escaped. 14 years of Dr. Hegrawal. 14 years of age.
So that paved the way for...
And that is when, after the Mopla massacre, he understood that there has to be a military unit for protection of Hindus. There has to be a military unit. We talk about the butchery of the 46 Direct Action Day, 47 partition, but we don't talk of the kind of work RSS has done to save the number of lives during that same time frame.
Understood.
We should also look at that.
Exactly.
Like we should look at these other aspects of Bose for his economic policy, financial policy, his planning, his military policy, his child education, women empowerment. There's so many other facets to Bose which we do not, and I will talk in my next episode in details on this.
Sir, one last question I want to ask about Bose, and then we can go into other topics as well.
But before that, let me finish you.
Yes, sir.
The thing is that Bose was handed over the reins by Rajbihari Bose. Netaji Subhash Bose, he got it from Bose, who had already managed the Indian Independence League, but since he was old and there was a growing demand from the other members that Subhash Babu should be brought in, that is when it was decided to hand over the reins to him. Of course, there was an army which was mobilized after talking to the Japanese POWs, and there were a few people, because Bose during his stay in Germany also had developed an Azad Hind Bahini over there, and that also was pretty big. It was almost, I think, 4,500.
Understood.
4,500 का लोग उधर भी इकट्ठा कर लिया था उन्होंने.
Understood. Sir, I just want to know about the spy system, because as you said, in his age of 16, if I'm not wrong, he went out of the house and he was preferred to known for escaping by the peoples. Sir, after knowing Bose, like there are some other Indian movies which have came. So the one thing which I was amazed and looking up of Bose was the spy system or the agents which he had, which were very common with people. And then when time comes, they will like act like a revolutionary kind of a people. Like how did he develop into this kind of a mechanism over that people? Because all these were ordinary men. Like okay, like Bose did this or Bose is escaping. It is okay. He's the visionary mind. But how did he change others? Like where people from many areas, like down south, when you go to Andhra Pradesh or when you go to Tamil Nadu or even in Bengal itself, like he had changed people into the actual spy system. Like today's RAW or today even Mossad, like if you would have been there, he would have been giving a very much tough competition to the world spy ecosystem as well. What is your viewpoint on that one, sir?
So first of all, there are two aspects to it which I personally feel. He was a master in disguise. Master. That's how he, escaped from Calcutta also. But even before that, how he developed, and that is why to understand the childhood and teenage life and the early young age of Bose is very important, and that is why time and again I'm coming back over here. Because this is one aspect that historians have not explored. This is one aspect that historians have not explored, because a lot of things that he learned in those early years that he picked up after his travel between North and East India was something he put in place in his later years. And this disguise, this camouflaging of himself comes from his, the ability to camouflage himself comes from his ability that he's learned from going and connecting with the people in his early years, that when he escaped from home. He met with so many variety of people. He was a very, amicable person who can go and talk and sit anywhere with anybody.
Understood.
I will give you one small example and why it is so. You asked that why so much of enigma between amongst his people and why so much people, emulate him. I'll give you one story from my family archives. My great grandfather, Satish Chandra Roy, he used to work for Bose. He was the financier for Bose in Rangoon and Eastern India. So that is how Bose used to come and stay in our family ancestral place in Rangpur. Now, this incident goes back to 1943 when Bengal was ravaged by the famine. And that was the time when Bose had his headquarters in Rangoon. And the local Bengali community or the club, whatever you say, had invited him for a lunch. So typical of this thing, so when he was invited for lunch, a big platter was given with lot of delicacies, Bengali delicacies, which he used to love. And he was a big foodie also, very big foodie. But when he looked at those and his choicest of items are being served to him, he broke down in tears. Pani ki tarah aansu aa rahe, and crying like a child. So everybody was flabbergasted at why is he crying. So when he controlled himself, he said that my countrymen are not even getting food for one day or half a meal in a day. And how can I have this kind of food with myself? But on insistence of the organizers, he had little bit of dal chawal. That's it.
That's it.
This much with aloo chokha or mashed potato. Now imagine if that man will not have an appeal, who will have an appeal?
Exactly.
That's the kind of control, the kind of fire that he used to breathe in people, the vocal tonic and the motivation that people used to die for him. I can die for him. I'll give you another example. Okay, that is why I said that, understanding how he picked up this. Look at the reflection. I'm giving you a comparative study now. This is very important to understand. In his early days, when he's in the college, in the vacations, he comes back to his hometown, Cuttack. He has his friend circle over there, and cholera was an epidemic, used to be an epidemic in those days. Used to go to the far-flung villages inside Odisha, which is not captured in history today, which we do not learn of, speak of, and do seva over there. And he writes that when our party used to reach there, they used to think who has come and why these people have come. The villagers used to grow suspicious about their arrival. And whatever nursing they used to do, they used to go only one doctor. One of their friends used to be a homeopath doctor. Learning, not even past, learning. He used to be the only doctor homeopath with some medicines, and rest these guys are nursing folks. Subhash Babu himself was a nursing guy. And he said that most of the guys used to die. And not only the seva of the people who were sick, he used to do the cremation also. Now this is very, very important. Please understand that man. He used to do the cremation also for the bodies. A cholera-ridden body used to do cremation. Can we think of it in the COVID times? We know what happened to our relatives. Exactly. We were not even allowed to visit them.
Understood.
And these people, open-handed, they didn't used to have gloves also. They used to go and do the cremation also. That same theology now, that same trait now flows into when he is the supreme commander of the Indian National Army, Azad Hind Fauj. How? The food, he used to organize parties also for his boys, right? And the food that used to get cooked, he used to go and personally supervise in the kitchen. Would you believe me? This is, I'm talking in Sionan. Would you believe me? He used to inspect the vegetable supplies. How clean they are, how good they are. The quality of the food, he used to taste it. He used to see the preparation process. And after that, when the men used to sit down and have the food, he used to not only serve them, but go around and ask, how is the food? Have you taken it completely? जैसे हम लोग करते थे अपने घर का शादी में.
That's how he was.
He was the father to each and every soldier. And this is how it happened. There was a shortage of nursing staff in Rangoon, and he used to go and sit with the soldiers and used to nurse them. The commanders used to come and pull him away.
Understood. That's how he was.
अगर ऐसा आदमी का लोग ऐसे आदमी के लिए जान क्यों नहीं देगा?
Understood. So if we keep.
I can give you stories after stories, incidents after incidents, which people who are hearing me will cry when they hear.
Definitely.
And this is just probably 15% that I'm telling you.
Understood, sir. Sir, I think we have touched a lot about Bose. So I want to just have a small glimpse of Aurobindo as well. So in today's era, like his thoughts are very much relevant. So how did you see, like in the present government or the like the present scenario of the Bharat, and how did you see his Aurobindo visions over here in today's scenario, sir?
Very good question. Aurobindo's visions are still not implemented. Let me put it as blunt as that.
Okay.
And not even Swami Vivekananda's. Swami Vivekananda, one and the same thing. What Rishi Aurobindo says is what Swami Vivekananda says. Each complement and supplement each other because the later is the student of the former. I would say in the last 10 years something has happened on those lines, but not before that. Not before that. You take the economic policy, you take the education policy, you take the armed forces, you take our 5-year planning. I don't see the vision that they gave was happening till 2014. And I'll be very blunt, after Modi ji came in, things have started moving on those lines specifically. And that is why Modi ji, after he came in, he made Swami Vivekananda the youth icon.
Understood.
Because he existed for youth. He empowered the youth. He gave direction and vision to the youth.
So that's
that man, when he tells each and every youngster he meets in every colleges, school colleges meetings, or the revolutionaries where he meets, India has no religion for the next year apart from his freedom. Imagine the thought process of that man.
Way ahead.
And it is exactly those 50 years that we get freedom. How did he envision this?
Exactly.
In the Ramakrishna order, we consider him as an avatar of one of the Sapta Rishis, Swami Vivekananda. And Ramakrishna Paramahansa as Swam Mahavishnu. Rama and Krishna.
Understood. Sir, let's talk about the contributions of the mutts or missions or some other extra, independent bodies, which are, because like you touched upon Ramakrishna Mission, and there are, like today there are a number of mutts, there are a number of missions throughout India as well. Like we can even talk about a special episode of the Rashtriya Swayam Sangh, and we can talk about everywhere. But from Bengal, like let's say, or from the eastern part of India, what are the contributions of those missions like Ramakrishna Mission, sir?
See, if you talk of contributions in making India or in the uplift of
both,
or in the freedom struggle, there are two organizations that specifically contributed to it. One, of course, is the Ramakrishna Mission. The other one is Bharat Sevashram Sangha. People know less of them, Bharat Sevashram Sangha, because they are not so much publicized or marketed. And they are equally big as Ramakrishna Mission, and they do equal amount of charity work, equal amount of education, and what they do today, what I'll be very candid, what Ramakrishna Mission doesn't do is armed teaching.
Okay.
Arms teaching.
Okay. So
you go to Kashi on a Dashera day. Like Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh RSS has the Dashera Pujan happening with the sword, which used to be our I would say legacy, a heritage, a religious heritage, I could say. Astra Pujan in Vijayadashmi. That has been there from, we can find it, Rana Pratap also doing it, Shivaji Maharaj doing it, or even Bappa Rawal doing it, or happening in any ruler of Orissa or Bengal or down south also. Because that is the core Shakti. If you look at Chandi, the 700 shlokas which come from the Markandeya Puran, that clearly outlines that on the Vijayadashmi day, Astra Pujan has to happen.
Exactly.
That is the basic format of a Durga Puja. Now, Bharat Sevashram, every monk today, they know sword fight. Every monk, any ashrama, anywhere in India, anywhere in outside of India, they know this. And you can see the demonstrations of them on a Vijayadashmi evening. On the Vijayadashmi day in the morning, when the Bose, when Ma is being prepared for departure. Before that, they do it in all the ashrams. But what is important here is I see multifarious directions from which these contributions had happened. Of course, one is the philosophy part of it, the teachings part of it. The other one is the resourcing part of it, where they actively, like I quoted certain incidences where Subhash Bose, how they were interacting with the Ramakrishna Mission. In fact, for that matter, very interesting point that you made me remind is when the Britishers reoccupy Singapore, they demolish the INM Memorial. The first thing they do is they demolish the INM Memorial, which was done by Subhash Babu. And the second thing that they do is to raid the Ramakrishna Mission.
Okay.
They break into the Ramakrishna Mission, the British forces.
So they know who
and
made all these things.
They do an absolute combing of the mission. Absolute combing. Because Bose used to go there regularly, these people used to come, the monks used to come and meet him, particularly the secretary and the brahmachari. He used to come to the temple and do sadhana and do everything of that. They used to discuss and do many things, which obviously they did not purposefully keep a record of it. It was only verbal between these two. And, the British, expecting to find some incriminating documents proof against Bose and the Ramakrishna Mission, they barged in and they combed the entire this thing and they put things into shambles over there. And I'm purposefully sharing this history because people should know that
exactly
how these missions, how these mutts have bore the brunt of the British as well. It's just not the revolutionaries, it's just not the individual families, but these mutts and sampradayas also have bore the brunt of it.
Okay.
So this is one part of it. Now, if you look at it from a historical background, we know of Ananda Math, we know of Vande Mataram. How was it made? It was made based, how was it composed? It was composed based on the Sannyasi rebellion. And Sannyasi rebellion was done by the Dasnami Sampradaya sadhus, the Ghoris particularly, who used to raid like the guerrillas and raid the British parties and kill and run away with the arms and wealth they were carrying. And it used to continue for 50-55 years. It continued between Bengal and Odisha.
Okay. So
and based on that, the Ananda Math was conceptualized and created. And that is where from Vande Mataram comes in. The concept of motherland was given by Rishi Bankim. Sujala Sufala Malayaja Sasala Sassa Samala Mataram. Mataram. That is where it is being given over there. It is already there, but he reinvokes it.
That's very much great, sir. Sir, I would like to touch upon the women's angle or the women's contribution or the women's perspective from the indigenous wisdom as well. So we all know, like from south we have Velu Nachiyar, or from Rani Lakshmi Jhansi, like from Jhansi we have these many peoples as well. So what is the overall contribution of women? Like would you like to throw some aspect in that angle, sir? Because today we have a women president in our country as well, and we can see that how women are the forefront during that times as well. Would you like to throw a perspective in the women's contribution of the indigenous freedom struggle or in their indigenous wisdom towards their freedom struggle, sir?
See, there are multiple examples, multiple female revolutionaries who laid down their lives, starting from Matangini Hajra to Abakka Chota, the first human bomb, Jhalkari Bai, the Confederate, the closest aide of Rani Jhansi, and Rani Jhansi herself. And let me take up Rani Jhansi. This is something which people should know. The Kulguru of Rani Jhansi, or Manu, her original name Manu, in Kashi, was military priest from Jagannath Puri temple. How
Okay.
amazing.
From here to there.
How
Okay.
amazing. And people can look up when they say Chaki Kuntia. His name was Chaki Kuntia. He was a master wrestler, a martial artist in indigenous Kalingan martial art. An expert is in as many as 8 languages, a scholar, a author, a poet, a good horse rider, very good horse rider, a sword fighter, fantastic sword fighter, a military strategist, and of course a Sevayat of Sri Jagannath. I mean, I happen to know his great grandson, who is also a Sevayat in Sri Jagannath temple currently. I will not give out his name purposefully. But he was the person who used to influence Manu a lot. Today we know what Rani Jhansi is, but who made Rani Jhansi on those lines? Who trained her? It was Chaki Kuntia. It was Chaki Kuntia, and Chaki Kuntia used to visit Kashi quite often. And even after Manu's marriage to Raja, to the Raja, and they moved into Jhansi, and he used to come to Jhansi also. And this is the reason why Manu had he gave him, or he made him one of his closest commanders when the freedom struggle, first battle for freedom, the 1857 Mutiny broke out. And he was given a charge of 3,000 horsemen. That's a very big responsibility, right? 3,000 घुड़सवार का जिम्मेवारी था उनके पास, and मनु ने दिया था वो. उसके लिए चाकी कुंटिया के लिए हमेशा वो मनु ही थी, और मनु के लिए चाकी कुंटिया था हमेशा.
Exactly.
So that is how Indian freedom struggle has been, energized and revitalized by spiritualism, by our Tirthams, by our Brahmins, by our Sevayats, and how our women have been empowered and enlightened by the indigenous wisdom through our, teachers from time to time. This is just a very small example that I shared with you.
Sir, I think we have discussed a lot about Bose, Aurobindo, and Swami Vivekananda, or the missionaries, or the things which have paved a very indigenous role, or their wisdom in the struggle for freedom. And I think it is a never ending story. So, because all parts of Bharat play an important role in their wisdom as well, right? From south to north, they have their indigenous wisdom over there. I think we should continue it into many series, and we should develop something very big like this, and put out to the audience, or put out to the people of India, or to the world as well. Absolutely. So that they should know about how rich we are in the wisdom, and how rich we are in cultural sense, and how thought processful we are in all aspects for the freedom struggle before years itself. Correct. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to thank you very much for this unknown stories which was unknown to the world, which you have been breaking out. So thank you so much, sir.